It's good to have you back with us on Deep Drive, our weekly podcast powered by Kotak Mahindra Prime. Now, on this week's episode, it's once again that contentious topic of ethanol, but specifically on flex fuel vehicles and if they make economic sense. Now, we have tested a bike and hopefully we're going to test some cars later, but this is what we're going to be talking about because really flex fuel vehicles is in a way the only way to really have mass adoption of biofuels, but it has to make sense for everyone, and that's what we're going to be talking about. I'm Hormazd Sorabjee.
And I'm Rishaad Mody. Yeah, Hormazd, we've just done some exhaustive testing on perhaps the only flex fuel bike that you can get currently in India today. But before we talk about the test, let's get into what a flex fuel vehicle is and why it's called that.
Yeah, I think flex fuel vehicle, by the word flex, means it's flexible. It can take, any kind of ethanol blend. Actually, it can even go from E0 all the way to E85 right now, what's been calibrated, anything in between. So really the entire fuel system, the calibration, it's all been kind of, developed and engineered to take these multiple blends.
Or even up to E100. I think the Wagon is E100. Yeah.
Exactly, even E100 right now. What I meant is E85 is what is available right now, but it can really, really cover the entire spectrum of ethanol. And it's not really a new technology. It's been around before. In fact, it's very prevalent in Brazil. Obviously, there is a cost to that, which we'll come to in a bit. But the fact is, flex fuel vehicle means flexible to take any blend of ethanol and, without any real worry, because I think even from a, let's say, corrosion standpoint, which ethanol is, all the parts are beefed up to take these very high concentrations of ethanol. And again, the engines have been calibrated and the ECUs, again, they can switch between different blends. You've got different hardware in it as well to take really the different properties of concentrations of ethanol too. But I think, Rishaad, let's talk about the Gixxer.
Yeah.
Firstly, I think it's about 10,000 rupees more expensive. So from a total cost of ownership, we've got to factor that in as well.
Correct. What we've seen so far with the bikes, with the Gixxer that is on sale right now, it's the only one on sale right now. Honda used to have one, but it got discontinued recently. And Hero's new bikes. It's around a 5% differential on pricing.
On
pricing. So you're going to have to pay about 5% more to get a flex fuel vehicle, which is not too bad. With the one car that's gone on sale right now, strangely enough, that price difference seems to be higher. The Wagon is...
Yeah, Wagon R 85,000 rupees difference. But I think with cars, there's a lot more hardware. It's a lot more complicated. And I think which we'll get into is that, it's all about scale.
Yeah.
Obviously, these parts some parts have to be completely freshly developed. I believe flex fuel Wagon R even has new pistons and new piston rings. Now, that's quite expensive. So if there's a small volume, clearly, you're going to amortize the cost over a smaller volume and the price will go up.
Right. That makes sense. So anyway, back to the way we tested it. At the time when we tested, there was only one pump in the country that retailed E85, which was in Delhi. So we went there. We got the motorcycle and we tested this effectively over an 80-kilometer loop. It wasn't 80 kilometers, it was a shorter loop that we ran repeatedly so that we could make up for any variances in traffic and things like that.
That's right.
And we basically drained the fuel tank, ran the engine till it went dry and there was no fuel in the line as well. Filled up the bike with E85, ran our loop for 80 kilometers, came back to the pump, brim to brim method, the way we normally test all our vehicles. And we got a number. And we repeated this process the next day, same loop, same time, with E20.
Yeah. And the key is keeping the same average speed roughly.
Average speed was important.
Right.
We got an average speed of about 29 kph, which I know sounds low, but this is the average speed in Indian cities. In fact, in Mumbai and our fuel economy tests, it actually works out to be lower than that.
29 is quite high.
It's because of the Delhi situation of more flowing roads.
Yeah, that's right.
So our test loop gave us a bit of higher speeds, 60, 70 when I say higher speeds within the city, flowing traffic plus jam traffic. So a varied mix, to give you a real world thing. And the numbers that we got, let me just refer to them here so I don't mix up anything. The numbers that we got on E20 was 38.1 kpl. And on E85, significantly lower, 28.8, which is to be expected. I mean, I think
it's about a 24% drop, right?
In our case, on this motorcycle, it worked out to be 24%. But from what we're understanding, speaking to manufacturers, no one really wants to commit to this. It's a sensitive number. But I'm understanding that we're looking at 20 to 25-ish% fuel efficiency drop on E85.
Right.
When you do the cost analysis on a motorcycle, which is giving you a good fuel efficiency, per kilometer is 2.68 rupees for E20 and 2.85 rupees for E85. Small difference, but over 10,000 kilometers that works out to.
There's really no incentive then to buy E85.
It's punishing. It's not even it's not like there's no incentive. You're being punished for spending more to buy the vehicle and then spending more to run the vehicle.
I mean, really, if you ask me, I think the pricing is where the issue is.
Yeah, it works out to 19.5%.
Government should have realized this, that, with 20 rupees, it's really not going to be incentive enough. And, honestly, what I think is, I genuinely feel, the going down the path of developing biofuels, there are a lot of benefits to it.
Yes.
Which, let's say our energy security, foreign exchange, preservation. We spend a lot on oil imports. Our biggest import bill is crude oil. And clearly, even from a circularity point of view, from a CO2 point of view, it is better. But at the end of the day, I think where it's gone wrong is with the consumer. Because in the end, the consumer has had to have the maximum pain points, which is really the running cost. And I think clearly, as what you're saying is, if E85 is more expensive to run, that's ridiculous. And, why would anyone want to go in for it?
But that's not the case worldwide.
No, that's not the case.
Yeah, that's what we've seen so far with Brazil. What we've noticed is that it's a changing rate on a daily basis.
Right.
And they are set up with, I think, E27 as their base fuel. And then they have E85 and even E100, if I'm not wrong. There, I hear that customers look out for a minimum of 30% price differential.
Right.
If the difference between E85 and the base fuel is more than 30%, we fill E85 today.
Exactly.
If not, we fill regular gas.
Yeah.
In France, I've heard that the price difference is even higher. Between E10 and E85, it's half the price.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there you are, again, incentivized to first buy that
So if
vehicle.
it was half the price here, it would be around 55, 60.
Yeah.
Should have been 55, 60.
It should have been at least 30%.
Yeah.
Because it's not only meant to match E20, it has to undercut E20.
And
your
to
running
compensate
costs.
for the overall higher purchase price
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, absolutely.
Which is not done. What I think the problem is, honestly, is that feedstock, the base price has been, at 72 rupees. So really, the ethanol costs, that's the base price. So the ethanol itself is costing upwards of 72 rupees. So clearly that really is where, it's hard to go below the prices. And I think really it's this pricing mechanism where something has gone wrong, because obviously it is prioritizing or benefiting the sugar industry, the agricultural sector, much more than the motorists, which is, where the motorists are feeling the pain point. But even so, I think, as a good strategy, they could have done an introductory price, even if it meant taking a knock per liter, started off with, let's say, even 65, 70.
It's not made a good first impression.
No, it's not made a good first impression. Now, you start at 65, 70. It's like how, car manufacturers, they launch at a really cool sticker price and then quietly take the price up. If they had launched at 65, 70, it would have had a great impact. Now, one could say, but they would lose a lot of money in that. But there are no E85 vehicles. There are no flex fuel vehicles.
And there are hardly going to be any pumps as well.
Exactly. So there are no flex fuel vehicles or hardly any flex fuel vehicles. So the consumption of E85 would be minimal. And if you took a knock on the margins of that, the losses would be minimal on that as well. But just the optics of it, because as it is, the government is under tremendous flack right now. We are also under tremendous flack for saying anything good about, ethanol today. Because right now, it's all about how bad the politicians are, what they're doing. So it's become more political sometimes than science and fact-based. But, this is what the perception is. And very often, that's what's driving up, opinion. So I think, to have really made a strong case for it, they should have started with a sub 70 rupees price per liter.
Yeah.
And clearly, there wouldn't be too many takers there, because as we've seen, there are no flex fuel vehicles, or very few flex fuel pumps. So really the offtake of, let's say that petrol or the E85 at that price would be very low.
I think Indians have proven that if we are going to save money, we will adopt a technology, as we've seen with CNG. CNG is not as convenient as petrol.
Exactly.
But it's still being adopted widely because you're saving money.
Exactly.
And the same thing could and should apply here.
No, and it's not that it's not even a break even. You're losing money.
Exactly.
Which is absurd.
Yeah. But I also, seeing this widespread uproar online, I just want to say that this is not something that's being forced on people. E85 is a choice.
Yeah.
You don't have to buy E85. You don't have to buy a flex fuel vehicle. And it's not like you're going to have a chance to use E85 very widely as well, because according to my data, there are 103,000 petrol stations around the country. By the end of next year, there will only be 5,000 E85 pumps across the country. So it's not even going to be a widely available thing that, is becoming so mainstream so quickly.
Right.
For me, the bigger thing that we need to talk about is what is the base ethanol that's in our fuel. And that's up in the air as well, right?
That is very much up in the air right now. So I think clearly that is what it's unfortunate. Again, there should be some proper clarity on that. And you can't keep on improving the baseline every couple of years, because the auto industry will go crazy. Constantly recalibrating engines, which is a huge cost, a huge effort. You've got to decide if you want to go to E30, wait and then go straight to E30. And honestly, my worry is not of the E20 vehicles. And again, speaking to a lot of manufacturers, they are quite okay on the material compatibility of E20 spec to E30. But the worry is what will happen to the E10 and E5. There's a lot of E10 vehicles. Those could be impacted a lot with E30 fuel. So the sensible thing to do is, a lot of people saying, I want to wait and not buy a car. Actually, the sensible thing to do is buy a car now, because there's a better chance your E20 vehicle, and a lot of manufacturers are kind of saying quite openly that yes, I mean E20 we don't see a problem with E30
materially.
Materially.
Yeah.
But the E10 could be a problem, and that's really what the worry is about. And honestly, it's this ramming this higher blends of ethanol down motorists' throat without really giving any benefit. Fundamentally, benefit should have been given with the fuel price, because they are paying a price for it. They are paying a much lower mileage, and with potentially long-term damage.
And with further drops in mileage as the base content of ethanol goes up.
Exactly. So that's really the worry about the base ethanol. But coming again back to flex fuel, I think, it's really not been a great first step, the way they've kind of launched it, because straight off the economics, it just doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah. There's also one point I want to bring up. It's not such a concern with cars, because most, if not all, cars have been fuel injected for a very long time. But the mass market motorcycles, the ones that sell in lakhs every month, were not fuel injected until BS6 2020. So if you want to make something compliant with E20 or above, you need fuel injection for that, especially flex fuel vehicles. Now, Hero, for example, is talking about right now being able to create kits that can bring current BS6 and E20 compliant bikes up to fuel injected bikes into flex fuel vehicles. But that can only be done with fuel injected bikes.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is
because,
only
you need that. You need the calibration. You need the ECUs to really kind of compensate or adapt for the different properties of the different ethanol blends.
Correct.
Which you can't do with carburation.
Correct. And there's also some, I'm not sure if every manufacturer is going to do this. We reached out to a couple of manufacturers, Suzuki and Honda, with some questions, because they're the ones who have experience in this field.
Right.
And we understand that the changes needed would be a flex fuel compatible injector, fuel pump, fuel filter systems, fuel lines, ECU calibration, of course, will have to change. And these, again, like I said, these things can be done for bikes that have this baseline hardware in place. But I've also heard that there are certain things like valve seats that also need to be material compliant, because ethanol doesn't have such a lubricating quality as regular petrol.
Just the way CNG is the same issue, and a lot of CNG vehicles, their valve seats are hardened much more, especially in cars.
Yeah, so it may not be this straightforward, we'll just upgrade your vehicle to flex fuel if it's a thing. So we have to see how this pans out.
No, absolutely. And I think, that is a worry with going to a higher blend. It's not the E20 vehicle that I'm worried about. It's the E10 vehicles and the E5 vehicles and the pre-E10 vehicles, which then there is, a genuine worry about serious material degradation. Some manufacturers are saying that, look, we will have kits to just replace those parts, as and when. Right now, again, talking to a lot of workshops. In fact, just before this podcast, speaking to, let's say, people in Maruti as well, what they have said is, so far, there has been no real red flag on material degradation, even with the E10 vehicles. Now, it's still quite early.
It's very early.
Typically, it doesn't happen immediately.
This is a slow degradation.
It's
not
a very
something
slow
that's-
degradation. I think the way to look at it is, if one of these parts is supposed to last maybe 6 years, it'll last 4 years, or if it lasts 8 years, it'll last 6 years. So, they'll wear out a little faster. But again, there's been a lot of hoo-ha and noise and uproar created about this. And we've been criticized for really not thinking it's as big an issue as it's made out to be on social media. And frankly, because, so far what our data tells us is that there have been no red flags.
I have a personal example to share. I drive a 2005 Maruti Zen. I love it. It's a palate cleanser for me. It's an old, simple, connected vehicle.
And you're running it on E20?
And I've been running it all this time with no issues. Yes, it's always in the back of my mind. I hope my car is okay.
Yeah.
But it's been over a year now, I think, that we've had ethanol blended fuel.
Right.
Whether we knew it or not. And the car's fine. So I'm hoping that continues to be the case. But I'm also hoping I get parts support when it's not.
That's right. So, Rishaad, it's not that the engine will suddenly stop. There have been crazy things that people on social media say the AC doesn't perform as well when running on E20 fuel.
Anything going wrong now is attributed to E20.
Exactly. So I think we need to be balanced about it, and which is what we are. We just want to go on what the facts are. Our business is to try and give the facts on what the ethanol, let's say,
What it does to your vehicle. And
exactly. Yeah. But again, talking about flex fuel, I feel this was a bit of a lost opportunity.
Hormazd, we've talked quite a bit about the bikes. Let's just discuss the car a little bit. What do you make of the Wagon R, and do you think we're going to see a lot more of cars like this coming in soon?
Well, see, the Wagon R, it's about 85,000 more. I think that's a calculation like to like on the same spec. It seems a lot, and frankly, it is a lot.
It's more than 10%.
It's more than 10%. Clearly, it is. So why is it more in a car? There's a lot more that has to go into a car. So firstly, you need, obviously, a lot of hardware changes. You have to first, all the parts that are affected by ethanol, they have to be beefed up. Then you need high flow fuel pumps, you need specialized injectors, you need a different wiring harness. As I said, the piston has been changed, rings have been changed. Now, all this costs a lot. But the reason why it's expensive is, again, economies of scale. I think what Maruti has done, they've arrived at this price based on a very small volume that they project for a flex fuel Wagon R, and kind of factor that into the cost. Clearly, if they sold, 10x of this, the cost would come down. But clearly, right now, it's in such a nascent stage, a lot of chicken and egg situation. You don't have the fuel. And even if you have the fuel, it's expensive. So, it's not going to excite customers at all. It's really been done as a technology showcase. And I think hats off to Maruti. They've been the first to put their foot forward, actually show not just a technology demonstrator, but put a car on the road. Now, whether the consumer finds it attractive or not is a different matter, clearly not. But that's more to do with policy and pricing than to do with the technology.
Do you think that how with cars in the last few years, safety has just become this selling point, which is a great thing? Do you think flex fuel could become that more manufacturers start bringing flex fuel vehicles in as an insurance policy against uncertainty?
But it depends again on, let's say, the cost of it. The costs have to come down. Now, I think in Brazil, the costs have come down quite a bit over the years, 20 years back. And, they've done some interesting things like, all of the flex fuel vehicles have to have an ethanol sensor, to detect the change in blends, again, flex fuel. But I think in some models, I think it was a Gol in 2003 or something, Volkswagen launched. I think they did away with the ethanol sensor and just with the Lambda sensor with a very powerful software made it do the same job.
Right.
So, they were saving over there. So I think, and finally, if you see the delta between a flex fuel vehicle and, standard vehicle is much less. So I think it's very much a chicken and egg situation. But I think to really get this going, the government needs to give better policy, and they should have priced, I can't reiterate enough, they should have priced E85 really, below 70 rupees to really get people excited and interested in, because, once there's a saving on your pocket, you forget about everything.
And once there's a positive sentiment, it really spreads. With social media today, you've got a negative sentiments everywhere.
Exactly.
If you had a positive sentiments, you could have really spun this around.
That's right. And really today, there's so much kind of negativity around ethanol. And I think this is just making it worse because really it doesn't stack up at all. Now, probably, the question is in terms of fuel efficiency, can we expect the same delta in the Maruti Wagon R compared to what we got in the Gixxer? It's about 24%. It'll be interesting to see. I have to say one thing about Maruti. They are masters of engine calibration. The way they calibrate their engines, I don't think any company does it as well as they do, especially for fuel efficiency. In fact, when we did our E10 versus E20 tests, we found that the new Marutis had the least impact.
Right.
The delta was the least of that. So they really, have been really optimized in terms of the calibration. So it could be that let's say the loss in efficiency could be 20%. Could be even more. I'm just guessing. Right now we're 24% on
this
the
particular bike. Yeah.
But it doesn't mean that everything is 24%.
Exactly.
It depends vehicle to vehicle. Calibration, strategies, what everyone has done. So that remains to be seen. Hopefully we will get to test a flex fuel WagonR to understand, whether there is any cost savings on that at all. Yeah. Policy is important to make, and really it's finally all about running cost, which matters the most.
That's absolutely the most important aspect of all of this. But there is another side to it, which we also tested with the Suzuki, and that's performance. Now, ethanol.
That's right. The Gixxer is supposed to give some 2 bhp more.
Yeah,
with, flex fuel.
It's a little less than 1 horsepower. It's 3% more power.
Got it.
But the fact is that ethanol has a higher octane rating.
Yeah.
And theoretically, you can pull out a lot more performance. I remember for years.
You have to have the higher compression to get that. Otherwise, there'll be no benefit.
A higher compression and turbocharged engines particularly can make use of this. Like Koenigsegg, I think, quotes 1,200 horsepower in pump gas and 1,600 horsepower in ethanol. It's doable. But we won't see that kind of stuff in regular vehicles like this. There will be a small margin of performance improvement.
So, Rishaad, did we do a acceleration test?
We did.
Okay.
We did. So, Suzuki does quote a 0.8 horsepower difference when you run the same bike on E85 versus E20. In our tests, it was really very marginal. I think we're looking at less than 0.2 seconds difference in 0 to 100. There was again...
Just 0.2?
Just 0.15 literally. There was a 0.15 difference in fourth gear roll-ons as well. Very marginal. And I spoke to Azaman, who was out riding this bike, and he said, look, in terms of feel as well, it felt like the same bike to me. It just ran as it should run, and I didn't feel any noticeable difference.
That number actually could even be rider variation.
It could be just the condition variation. Because Azaman was the same guy who tested both bikes at the same place, and we followed that protocol.
Right.
So very similar numbers.
He could have launched it differently each time. So
it's very possible. Yeah. It's very possible. It's a small enough margin that
practically no real difference.
This doesn't jump out to us as any performance difference.
Right. Yeah.
So the performance difference really isn't much there, which makes it all about efficiency and price. So Hormazd, in the case of the cars, we've seen there's a big price difference. Is there anything the car manufacturers can do to make this just more appealing in terms of price?
So I think, price is one important thing. Ideally, again, if the price was cheaper, which it can't be because flex fuel technology, as we said, a lot of hardware changes, which costs a lot of money. And the fact that there's not enough scale to amortize that, the price goes up, the cost goes up, which again goes to the, let's say, the consumer. I think, there could be some tax incentives given. Now, I think we have these slabs of excise from 18 down to 5%. I don't think it'd be too much to ask for a 5%, let's say, a GST for a flex fuel vehicle. But I think there's a good case for a flex fuel hybrid to be at 5%. And I think that really makes a lot of sense for two reasons. One is, of course, everyone's been pushing for hybrids as one solution. It's got no tax benefits. It's been lumped with the ICE vehicles. Everyone's been fighting for some sort of, let's say, tax benefit somewhere between ICE and EVs, which is not there. So really, there's been really one group of manufacturers wanting a lot of push for hybrids. Others saying, let's have it for EV. And, you've also got the fact that biofuels, you want to encourage them for obvious reasons, what we said. So here the two come together. And the benefits of biofuels and hybrid technology, make a good case for, let's say, giving a flex fuel hybrid at 5%. And also what it does is, from the consumer's point of view, it offsets the higher price hybrids have, because hybrids are expensive. You've got the ICE engine and the electric part. So that pushes the cost up. And it also offsets, because if you're running on electric mode, the lower fuel efficiency of the flex fuel.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at 5%, you could get a flex fuel hybrid, which is affordable to buy, super affordable to run, and does wonders for the environment, for, let's say, even the oil imports, which is our biggest concern right now, and also, let's say, supports the agri industry. So I think, for me, a flex fuel hybrid really is, in a way, and a direction which, I think industry and government should be looking at in terms of incentivizing them, I would say, even with a 5% GST.
So there's still potential for the government to make lemonade here.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. Yeah. So again, as I say, want to wrap up with, government has put us on this path of biofuels, strategically. It makes a lot of sense, but I think the way they've handled it, honestly, they botched it up in a lot of areas. The way the pricing is of E85 fuel, the way E20 was rolled out and now pushing to E25 and E30, without really taking in the concerns of the consumer. So, all this should have been, better thought out. I mean, strategically, I think it is a way to go. I think a lot of countries are looking at it, to kind of move away from fossil fuels. It's just better for the world, actually, going forward. And I think, we, with the right policies and, let's say the right regulations, and keeping the consumer in mind, that don't let it impact his pocket, don't let it damage his vehicles. And, and there are ways to do that. I think, this is one direction that, I think is definitely worth pursuing.
Hormazd, just before we end this, there is one concern here. Ethanol has great benefits, particularly for the economy. But there is the real concern that this is a very water-intensive fuel.
Absolutely.
And we particularly are a water-stressed country.
Correct.
Going through a bad monsoon.
Yeah, with El Nino.
With
really,
super El Nino having arrived or just about to arrive.
Yeah.
There is that aspect to continue as well, whether the timing is right for this.
That's a very good point right now. But I think, they've already got the capacity, which is there. But again, as you said, some are water intensive. But, as the technology evolves and we go to Gen 2, where it's not done out of, the, let's say, very water intensive, feedstock like sugarcane and all.
And agricultural waste.
And yeah, exactly. Agricultural waste. There's other forms of materials which really are, let's say, more sophisticated, more environmentally friendly, and much more sustainable. So I think, one has to look at it in that sense. I think the main thing is public enemy number one is CO2, and CO2 reduction is considerable with biofuels over fossil fuels. And I think that's what we should be looking at. But again, as I said, we need the right policies to make it a win-win for everyone. So that's it from us on this week's episode of Deep Drive. I'm sure a lot of you all are going to have a lot of comments. So we look forward to hearing from you. And again, see you again, same time next week, Saturday, 11 o'clock. Thanks for watching.